Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 40th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. On today's episode, we talk to Adrian Cheifetz-Broca. He is an amazing actor and an amazing guy. So without further ado, let's hop into episode 40 of the Little Thespian Podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 40th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. On today's episode, we have an amazing actor, an amazing person. His name, Adrian Cheifetz-Broca. How are you, Adrian? It's been not too long. But it's been, it's
long enough.
It's been a minute. So how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. And guys, it's 40 episodes. How are we here? Right?
You made it. You're middle-aged now. Your back starts hurting. You probably have kids. Your hair's falling out. How does it feel?
Not too good. No, it feels amazing, honestly, guys. It's great to already be at 40, and we have many amazing guests coming in our fourth decade, I guess, if we're using years and whatnot as an analogy as well. But
Season 4,
guys. And as you can see, whole new equipment, whole new things coming in now. And, it's an honor to have amazing guests on every week, or every time you guys see this. Not every week. That's a bit crazy. We used to do that. Now we don't. That's kind of my own stupidity. But we are back with Adrian today, and we're gonna have a blast. We're gonna go down memory lane, and I'm looking forward to it. So, as you know, my first question, as per always on the podcast, we were discussing this beforehand. How did you get into theater?
I got into theater because I didn't want to do the work to do something else. Let me tell you this story. Should I answer it with things that I would normally only include in retrospect as opposed to things I thought at the time?
I actually would love to hear the second part of that. Seeing what you thought and then what you knew in retrospect.
Okay. So I got into acting, I guess, early on. I think I did a couple of plays. I'd say definitively I got into acting in high school. After a couple of years of high school, one of the classes we got was drama, and I enjoyed it a lot. In my first year of high school, we did a school play. That one was Princess Bride. I think I could be Princess Bride. I'm gonna say it's Princess Bride. If it's not, you could sue me later. And then I didn't do another school play in the next year, but the year after that, we did The Secret Garden, and The Secret Garden was fun. I played Dr. Craven, who I suppose you can say is like the main antagonist. And I really liked the feeling of being on stage. My sister, before I had gone to high school, she was in the high school I was in. She was in Clue, and I really enjoyed, and Les Miserables, and I really enjoyed watching her do it. She looked like she had a lot of fun. And so I said I want to do that when I got into high school. Though I didn't take it seriously as a future, that wasn't even a sparkle in my mind. When I was very, very, very young, so we're just going rewinding a little bit more. It's going to be all in different directions here. I was really into trains. And so like between the ages of 3 and 5, I was going to be a train engineer. Boom. Adrian Cheifetz-Broca, train engineer. When I grew up, video games were my thing. I was going to be a video game tester. Then I was going to be a video game designer. Then I said, never mind. That sounds like a lot of work. By the time I got into high school, wrapping back to high school now, I watched a lot of TV. I was really into Sherlock Holmes and this one show in particular called Lie to Me. And Lie to Me was a show about this guy who was like a human lie detector. He used a science which does technically exist, but he used an exaggerated form of the science where he can look at you and see all these micro expressions on your face and in your body, and he can tell what you're lying about and what you're telling the truth about. And my God, I thought that was the coolest thing. So in high school, I said, I'm going to go into criminal psychology. CSI and all that. Or I'll pretend to be one and I'll go into acting. It was always a joke. It was a joke. I got into CJEP 3 years before I met you. So this is, what year did you start? You started 2016. So this is 2013 or 14, because, you know, years are weird. It's 2013, 2014. I go into, no, we got to go before that. I'm graduating high school and I decided to apply to Abbott for social science with math because I thought I might want to go into criminal psychology, and I applied to Dawson for theater. This is where shit gets interesting for me and where a little bit of negativity enters my life. I'm going to tell you a little story. This is a long thing. I'm sorry. I go to Dawson and I audition and I leave. What did I audition with? I auditioned with something from Hamlet. I auditioned with something from Hamlet and I sang a song from Hedley and then I left. No audition training because this is way before Abbott, obviously. I get the letter. I was not rejected. God, I wish I was rejected. I got something called I was put on the waiting list. Matthew, before I go any further, what would you consider worse? Being rejected or being put on the waiting list? I'll answer that question for you, Matthew. Being put on the waiting list is so much worse because if you get rejected, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Rejected? I don't got to think about it anymore. Oh, too bad. Being put on the waiting list. Being rejected isn't the opposite of being accepted. Being put on the waiting list is, because if you're accepted until further notice. Obviously, a college wants to change its mind about accepting you. It can. It has that power. What a being put on the waiting list is, it's rejected until further notice. Basically, it means we don't want you, but we want you to keep worrying about whether we don't want you or not until we decide we do, because maybe someone decides to jump ship and we have a spot. I said, I'm not waiting for that. And I ended up getting accepted at Abbott for social science with math. Let me tell you about social science with math. It's social science and math. I ended up skipping and ditching and not attending so often. I missed so many tests because I didn't realize that in psychology class, which I did have, there was a test every second class. I ended up skipping every second class. I missed so many tests. I couldn't commit to it. And then math. I was good in math in high school. I was in advanced math. I was doing next year's math every year. In Sec 1, I did Sec 1, Sec 2 math. In Sec 2, I did Sec 3. In Sec 3, Sec 4. By the time I got to Sec 5, for all you Americans, it's like grade 7, grade 8, grade 9. By the time I got to the final year of high school, which is Sec 5, I was doing calculus. I was lost since Sec 1. I was always the bottom of this class, but I never went down to like the lower tier. I always just stayed in the math tier because I'm like, I'm already here. But I was so lost. I ended up, still passing and getting to Sec 5 and doing the calculus and passing the calculus and getting this letter said, hey, I did calculus. I did the advanced math. I'm sending it to colleges. I get to CJEP. Now I'm in Abbott, and I'm supposed to be telling you how I got into theater. I know, we'll get back to that. I guarantee this is the same story. I'm in Abbott now. I'm doing math, and I'm just the worst time. I failed calculus twice at Abbott. The first teacher, she was okay. I wasn't in it. The second teacher, she was this old woman who kept chanting in the middle of class, and I could not concentrate. I blame her for me failing calculus, even though I was probably also to blame for me failing calculus. And of course, I ditched psychology whenever I can, even though Luigi Pascal, my teacher twice in a row for psychology, he's a bro. He's a good teacher, and he's a fair teacher, and he's just a stunningly Amazing guy. He's like the Andy Cook of the psychology department. If you don't know who that is, there's an episode on the Little Thespian Podcast featuring a man named Andrew Cook, Dr. Andy Cook. You got to go watch that if you want context. That's on you.
That's on you.
That was 2 semesters. Those were my first 2 semesters of CJEP. Do you know what happens if you get the probation twice in a row? They kick you out. And so that was my first year of CJEP. And my second year of CJEP was spent attending night courses in like 2 different computer classes until they allowed me back in.
Wow.
So then I said, okay, I'm not actually going to be a criminal psychologist, but I had that little backup plan. The one I squeezed in there as a joke. I was going to pretend to be one. And so I applied once again, with very little confidence, might I add, the professional theater program at John Abbott College. This was 2012, must have been. I applied and I got in. And my homeroom teacher was this guy. What's his full name? His name was Terry. He was one of the teachers, very good teacher. And I'm doing the theater and I'm like, I could really get into this. This is just fun. It's so much fun to do this. Apparently, I wasn't very good though, because in the second semester of doing that, I had already been there a year. I got failed and I had to repeat the whole first year. I said, you know what? I'll take another chance. I'll audit some classes and then I'll try to finally get into second year. So I did first year again, and that's where I met yours truly. And it was only, I think, it was sometime in there that I said, you know what? I'm really feeling it this time. I'm doing a lot better. Maybe it's because in that first semester with you, none of my courses were being graded. And so I felt like this relief and I could really just relax in what I'm doing. And I said, yeah, I could really see me trying to do this for the rest of my life. So it really wasn't until I met you guys that I thought, wow, holy shit, this is it.
That's honestly incredible. I never knew that it was really like your first jumping off point, really. You know, at I guess Dawson was your first one. But mainly it came from John Abbott. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. We're going to talk a lot about our time there, because our time there really, I always say it on here, it really shapes our future moving forward when it comes to acting. And I know
it's hard to get a lot of exposure to acting. There's like high school plays or school plays, or in retrospect, I told you there was like one or two moments in retrospect where I thought, you know, this is really fun. When I was in elementary school, I went to a little Jewish elementary school down the road from me right now. And they would have the little kids in grade 1 and 2 do little shows for their parents. I wanted to like direct a little song thing he did, and he was teaching us the song he wanted to do. And me, oblivious to the consequences of this choice I was about to make, stuck my arm out, and like, I'm 6, and I said, hey, Rabbi Lanton, what if, just because there was a really big guy in class and there was a really small guy in class, and I raise my hand and I say, hey, Rabbi Lanton, what if Paul, because he's really small, stands behind Joshua because he's really big, and when he says his line, he pops out from behind him? And Rabbi Lanton stares at me. I thought I was in such deep trouble. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. And this is where the bad habit starts. Rabbi Lanton says, hey, that's a really good idea. And they do it. And it's like that for the rest of when we finally present it. And I was like, whoa. Now I am the worst backseat director any project has ever seen ever. The amount of times I've spoken to like Jason when we were doing Faustus, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. Ooh, I'm sure I annoyed him. But yeah, like I'll think to things like that. I'm like, hey, I kind of always been into this acting thing and performing thing.
Well, that's the thing.
That's hard to get
The
exposure.
amount of guests I've had on here where it's kind of like you either have it very, very early in life, or there's that one person or there's that one experience that you just realize this is what I need to do. And I guess you kind of had both because you had it later on, like you had it early on, but you didn't really think about it until later on in life, right? But yeah, that's the thing. And then you came into Abbott and you had one ensemble, and then you had the ensemble that you'd go
Graduated
and have that final curtain call with, and
the ensemble I spent 3 years with. And
Yeah.
that 3-year program that took me 4 years to do. That's my
But
favorite. That's one of my favorite jokes. I was in a 3-year program. It only took me 4 years to do.
Exactly. We're going to talk about all the time we shared together. So we obviously need to start off with Find Me, but we got to do it twice. And when we did it twice, we kind of had two different experiences, but because we had our entire cast for one, and then Andy decided, let's do it for the Fringe Festival. And I don't know about you, I found both of them had their strengths, obviously, and the first one definitely helped with our ensemble. But doing that Fringe Festival adaptation,
it felt so much more real,
right? Like there was something more to that, you know what I mean? Where we were still at Abbott. This was, our first time kind of doing something professional.
This was between first year and second year, the Fringe Festival, right?
Yeah.
How Find Me works, for those who don't know, and I'm just gonna eventually just keep my hands like this to keep these pods in. How Find Me works is you have like 5 male actors and 6 female actors, or whatever number you want to set up, and they all alternate parts. All the males will alternate male characters, and all the females will alternate female characters. Traditionally, obviously, you can do whatever you want and have crossover between genders, the spectrum of genders. And so because there were 30 of us or 20 of us, I don't know how many we were at that particular moment in time.
We were a lot.
Andy, our teacher and director of Find Me, cut it up in various ways and each gave us a little snippet. And so we did that. We did present it. We did present the Abbott version of it. And it was fun. It was a great experience. But the reason why the Fringe Festival version dug so much deeper and left such a bigger impression was that because we were a smaller cast at the time, we got to do more and we got to feel more. And so it just left a bigger impression on me. I, for one, what I remember sticking out to me was how often I fumbled my lines in the Fringe version and how ashamed I was every time I went home.
Honestly, I didn't even looking back at it. I think the one show that I really flopped on was the one at 10:30. We had a show with Find Me Fringe that was so goddamn late. A lot of people came, which I was surprised about, but the thing was, we had to read these letters. Now, if you guys go and you get the opportunity to find a copy of Find Me, you're going to see there is a time where Edward
very meta.
Literally goes and he reads out basically what's happening in his life from these letters. And just that one night, it gone. It just gone. It was no, this comes later on. That comes whatever. The thing is, we kind of needed those experiences too, because, it's building blocks, you know what I mean? And I remember one of the most fun moments from that is me and you had a scene as Edward and the counselor, or the consultant.
Was I the doctor?
You were the
I was the
doctor.
doctor. That's the specific line. It was the one where in the original version, the Abbott version, Ben played that part. Ben did a very good job. But when I was in the Fringe version, I was doing that. That's specifically the line I kept flubbing up because I kept looking at you, and I think Lynette Kotabakshi was sitting down on the chair next to you, and I'd have to stare at the two of you in the eyes, and nothing would there'd be nothing between here and here, and eventually I'd have to give up. I'd just stare at you. I could feel my face getting red, and I'd stare at you, and I'd just skip to the last line. But I'd deliver it differently, so so the pause made sense.
But honestly, if I wouldn't have known, like, you played it off very well, because the thing is with that scene, there's kind of like a standoff. Okay, so just to give you guys some context, if you guys have not seen or heard of Find Me, basically,
if any of you live in the UK, there's a good chance you probably heard of Find Me. According to our director, you take a test on it in your A levels, and they use Find Me almost every time.
And
I think it's an English literature A level.
I can see why, because it's basically it's a family tale of how to kind of deal with someone who...
The main character has a form of learning disability akin, and while not specifically named, because this happens before it exists, it's very akin to like a heavy diagnosis of autism, and they didn't know how to deal with it back then. So the end of the story, which is interestingly repeated once at the very beginning and once at the very end, because it's such an important thing. The poor girl ends up in an asylum for crazy criminals, because the system couldn't help her. She never did anything so awful. Most of the awful things she did were mostly to herself, running away, cutting her hair. She ripped some letters that belonged to her mother at one point, but that's not criminal. And so there's no reason why she should have ended up in an asylum. And so the doctor, or the consultant, he was saying effectively to the parents, if I recall correctly, there's just nothing we can do. And that's the line that really sticks, that he repeats at the end. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. They tried to help her. They've tried drugs. This poor girl was electrocuted a couple of times. Shock therapy. But nothing stuck, nothing helped. And so she basically went to prison for no reason. And everyone knew that she's not a criminal, but she went to prison.
And it's an amazing piece of theater that can be done by, a very small cast. We were, I want to say 6 to 8 people, roughly. I could count, but
I have the book right here, and I think we were around the recommended amount, because obviously you can mix and match, but I think we were around the recommended amount. You interviewed Molly, who, bless her heart, she wasn't part of our original cast, who kind of Andy wanted to pick from to do the Fringe Festival with, but he didn't have enough, so he went and asked Molly, and you probably brought this up when you interviewed her.
I did.
I'm assuming that's the same Molly. I actually don't know if it's the same. I'm assuming it's the same Molly.
That was close to 30 episodes ago, guys. That was episode 11. And we haven't talked about Find Me for a long time, which is why I wanted to give more context too. Like I said, it's a very amazing piece of theater, and it needs to be done more. Again, like Adrian was saying, it is taught in A levels,
especially now that people know and are learning more about autism and tolerance in the classroom amongst peers. Maybe it's not the most thematic thing right now. I could think of something that's a little bit more thematic right now, but tolerance for mental disabilities, learning disabilities, it's becoming more and more apparent. And so being able to see that play in modern day through that lens, that more tolerant lens, it probably, I'm sure the author, I don't remember her name, you probably do. I'm sure it would warm the author's heart to see people respond to it with so much tolerance, especially what they did in the midway home, like the people. What did they call it? It was like the halfway home. Dottie and what's his name?
Tom.
Tom and Dottie. to be able to see the world react with the same tolerance Tom and Dottie did for main character's name is Verity. For Verity, I'm sure it would warm her heart. I don't know if she's still around. I never checked, but if she is, and she saw the play make a resurgence, especially because it's so important in the UK, according to Andy. I have not actually fact checked that.
Let
I'm
us know.
so sorry.
Find Me by Owen Wymark. That's her name.
Owen Wymark.
Because I
based on a
remember
true
Wymark
story
was
too.
Yeah. So Verity Taylor was an actual human being in the
Just
UK.
not named Verity Taylor.
Not named Verity Taylor though.
We don't know anyone's actual name for. She made it that way for their privacy, obviously.
But yeah. So guys, check it out for sure. So we did the first Find Me at the beginning of second year. We always do that, and then we moved into 15 Dogs as well. So let's talk about 15 Dogs. Honestly, one of my favorite productions I've ever been a part of, but also very stressful. Why? Because we had to deal with, trying to walk on all fours. We're humans, we usually walk on two.
It was a play that demanded from a lot of specific people, from a majority of the cast, coordination, spatial awareness, and above all, physical ability. And I'll explain that in as much detail as I can, as quickly as I can. Physical ability, a lot of people were required to walk on all fours, and there was a lot of experimentation on the director's part, Zach Fraser, on how he wanted the people acting as dogs or cats, because there were cats too, to present that. So there was testing walking out on your hands and knees, but what was decided in the end was walking on your hands and your tippy toes, but not with your legs fully extended, so that your back stayed parallel to the ground and not sticking way up in the air. And then we had to learn to really run like that. And that was rather difficult. And then, of course, there were all these wooden planks and doors and posts. And because there was two plays going on at the same time, right? Well,
yeah. There's also Pride and Prejudice at the same time.
Pride and Prejudice being directed, not Pride and Prejudice. Arcadia being directed by Andy Cook at the time. It certainly dropped. It dropped like a bang. We'll get to that later. All the set for 15 Dogs had to be completely movable from on stage to off stage, because the set for Arcadia came down and took up the entire stage. So basically how the set worked for 15 Dogs is we would grab all these random geometric shapes made out of wood, bring them on and make a car or make a couch or make a bench or make a house, make a door, make a gurney. Victoria liked that gurney. That was Victoria's gurney.
Yeah.
Every time I smile, the things pop out of my ears. And so it involved a lot of coordinating who goes first, who goes second, who leaves something, who picks something up, coordinating together, going and moving at the same time, where you look, where you're not looking, how far you move, covering something, holding something up. That couch, I remember, was a big issue because it was very often difficult for whoever was under it to hold whoever's weight was sitting on top. Laurie and Chance, who played Majnun and whatever Majnun's new owner became, were constantly sitting on that couch. And if you've seen it, we may or may not have it on DVD. There's people under the platform making that couch, and they're sitting in Japanese, almost like Japanese style, kneeling on the ground with the plank on their lap, and that can't be comfortable.
Like you were saying, being underneath some stuff, and having weight on top of you and whatnot. I feel like a lot of people would say this, but the cast of 15 Dogs are probably in the best shape they might ever be.
I'm certainly not. I am definitely not in the shape I was. During the last 2 years since I graduated, my number one hobby has been putting on weight.
But honestly, during 15 Dogs too, like it was demanding, but the end product, like if you do, because we do have a DVD version of it, but you guys can't see it. But the thing is, you can actually look at the production and think, where did those people go? It actually became that fluent, and it became, you kind of had this moment of euphoria when you were seeing it, because you were like, what? Oh, this is beautiful. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I look at it very fondly, because that was the one show too that now we're with the third years, right? And
It was a huge cast because the second years and third years were working together.
and
Then
it was
again, it was
just,
divided in half again because half of the second and third years were working on Arcadia.
and the thing is
Still a
too,
huge cast though.
Zach basically, he didn't come up with 15 Dogs, but he came up with the stage production of it, right?
For context, 15 Dogs was a novel at the time, and Zach rewrote the book to make it a play. Then he rewrote it, and then he rewrote it and rewrote it, and he was rewriting it almost all the way up to dress rehearsals and final production. It was a little bit of a disaster, but it came out okay. We even invited the original author with a TH, and I think he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were so many. It was a play with a lot of moving parts, because literally everything was moving. Every part of that play was a moving part, because it had to be picked up by someone and walked away with during, after, and before show.
From start to finish, you really were in the show. You know what I mean? Like, you had to have warmed up pretty decently beforehand, and you had to basically come on, do the 2.5-hour show, and then once that curtain call hit, you knew you can rest. But there was never any real time for, let's get a nice good sip of water and let's chill in the green room. That wasn't a thing. Everyone was always on at some point, right? And if not, you were getting costume change, and it was crazy.
A lot of the characters doubled as narrators. You had a character and you had a narrator, and you had a chunk of paragraphs you had to do as a narrator. Then you had to run backstage, change into a dog, and come out running on all fours. And boy, do I have a story of when I had to run out on all fours.
Yeah, no, it's true. I really like that about it, though. The storyteller, there was something about it, because he also wanted us to be very almost animated. It wasn't just like you go and you just speak. It was you go and you're telling the story and you're feeling what the characters are feeling. And that really, I feel like that helped, at least me, moving forward, having more paragraphs, more monologues to do. It allowed us to kind of, feel what a character might feel towards even something that's not human, a dog, right? But you have that emotions with it, and it was a very emotional piece. So it had us feeling from the beginning to the end. So,
do you remember the comments list that someone, probably Zach, posted at the end of every rehearsal or show?
Yeah,
he would sit there. He would post them on the wall, and you would have to read them and find your name and see the comment. I got really paranoid this one time because I guess I was very good at being the narrator. I had it felt good to do. I felt confident doing it the way I was doing it, saying what I was saying, kneeling the way I was kneeling, looking the way I was looking. It just felt very natural, and I felt very animated. But he didn't give out a lot of compliments when he posted that piece of paper. There'd be a lot of comments. Hey, you forgot this line. Hey, be quicker on this, be slower on that. Hey, I've given you 3 warnings. Better be there. Except this one time, I hadn't seen him give a compliment, and then it got to my name, and it said Adrian. Good job being narrator. I felt like such shit. Because I'm like, wait a minute. And I scrolled all the way up to the top of the page, and then I went back down. I'm like, no one else is getting a compliment. Does he have some kind of, is there some kind of illusion that he's living where he thinks I'm not going to perform if I'm not complimented often enough. Because I'm like, what? No one else got a compliment. Why I got a compliment? Why is he being so nice to me? What does he want? Now I joke about it now, and I'm trying not to lay it on like, I got a compliment, but it actually bothered me for quite a while. I'm like, what? I didn't think I was not deserving of the compliment, and I definitely did not think that others weren't deserving of compliments. A lot of people were doing really good work in that production, but it bothered me that I got this compliment because I was thinking, like I said, why did he think he needed to say that? Do I give the impression that I'm needy and thinking I need a compliment? And so it's not a story that needs to lead anywhere, but it bothered me for like a few weeks because this was like a little bit earlier on when we started doing dress rehearsals. So it bothered me long enough that it stuck in my mind when I got it to the end of the production.
The rehearsal process for the show too, just to put it into a bit of context, if you guys only saw the production, my God, it was different. It was a different rehearsal process because
how many different versions of the script did we go through?
I think I remember some of my stuff getting cut. Like it had to be dress rehearsal or right before dress rehearsal. I know in Tech Week, I think it was the second part of Tech Week, we couldn't actually finish the show and teching the show because it was close to 3 hours long. And
he didn't want there to
cut it down.
He didn't want there to be an intermission. I thought to myself, we should just let it have an intermission. It's fine. We'll just let there be an intermission. It's fine. All these lines are such good context and emotional things that we're saying and have such relevance. And then a lot of it got cut because he didn't want there to be an intermission and he didn't want it to go too long.
My God, the amount of stuff that got cut too. And like the beautiful writing by Zach. Honestly, Zach, we need to have you on eventually. So please come on. And we're going to talk about it. But the amazing writing in that show. And it's crazy because some of it, kind of was left on the cutting room floor. But overall, not having the intermission and having just the
momentum of the play, which is what he wanted to keep.
I think paid off. But there's some amazing words somewhere that was originally going to be in 15 Dog.
Let me tell you a story. So I was talking to Matthew. I have back pain right now, and I've had chronic back pain for a while. But it reminded me, as I was telling him about this, I was in a lot of pain during one of the shows. We were doing 15 Dogs. And this is what happened. Between the third and the fourth showing, this is right in the middle, I went to see Avengers Infinity War.
Amazing.
And I got there oh my God, it was so good. Like everyone was talking about it. This was a few years ago now. I went there via longboard. It's like a 2-hour movie. It's not Endgame long, but it's like a 2.5-hour movie. I got there via longboard. I went one way via the street. I went there, watched the movie. Now I'm on my way back and it's pitch black. I'm on a longboard. No helmet, by the way, because I'm dumb. I took a different way that I initially used to get to the theater. It was via back way. There's a huge crack in the street that I didn't see.
Montreal.
Montreal. I hit the crack. And now you're thinking to yourself, if you're on a longboard, you're not facing forward. You're on your side. I hit the crack and I get flown sideways because I'm standing sideways. My right arm goes up. Miraculously, my head didn't feel a thing. My head totally fine. My arm and my button on my shorts, toast. I couldn't raise my arm past this. And it wasn't until I was partway home, because I was still longboarding home, that I realized my shorts keep falling down because the button is missing. Geez, I took a fall and I'm in pain. I'll probably be in pain for a long while. The issue was I had to perform 15 dogs the following day. I never went to the doctor. I'm convinced I didn't break anything, but I cracked something or bruised something. And there's permanent damage here somewhere. But I remember talking to Chancery Jones the next day and said, hey, the scene where you're Majnoon and I'm this golden retriever. We have to run out from the side. The context is he's Majnoon. He's a big black poodle. I'm a golden retriever about the same size. And we both have to run off stage, me chasing after him. And then we have to do like a half turn around to come back to the side we came. And now we're on front stage. I have to attack him and then end up pinned to the stage by him while on all fours in the specific way that we designed to do it. And it's not an easy thing. It required physical activity. Now I have what's in my mind a useless arm. In so much pain, like the mane is going from my arm to my back, down my leg. It's total disaster. So I said, hey, Chance, we got to take 5-10 minutes. I got to figure out if I could even do it because I'm in so much pain. He's like, bet we got this. And so we did it. We compromised. He was a lot more gentler when he flipped me and turned me on the ground, for better or for worse, because obviously he didn't want to hurt me. And I thank him for that. But literally, it was an issue for the next 3 shows that we had to do. I was in so much pain from then to the end of the year because, and I never went to the doctor. That's one of my regrets. I never went to the doctor. I should have, but I was so busy with 15 dogs. And then I just forgot about it afterwards. I just dealt with it.
Yeah, I
couldn't for like,
mm-hmm.
it wouldn't go for like the rest of the year for like a couple of weeks, month, 2 months. I couldn't raise my arm more than this. And so the whole being a dog thing was difficult.
Yeah, no, I remember that now, thinking back at it. And it really is one of those things, like as an actor, you're put into these jobs.
The show must go on.
The show must
go on. When they say break a leg, they mean it. I think I would have been sore even if I didn't hurt myself, but like
but that's the thing.
It was a whole other dimension of pain doing it.
We're also not meant to usually be on all fours, right? Like as an actor, whenever someone sees my picture or pictures of me and 15 dogs, they want to hear more about it, because whenever you think of acting, you usually don't think, oh, I'm going to play a dog in a production.
I lost you there a little bit. Can you see me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. But yeah, you usually don't think that, okay, like the first thing you think of when you become an actor is probably I'm going to eventually do, Romeo and Juliet. You're going to do some classic stuff. You're going to do some weird stuff.
And yet one of the first things we learned to do was how to play different animals.
Mm-hmm.
In movement, one of the first things we learned was how to incorporate animal qualities into performance.
And that was from Zach too. It's ironic. It comes full circle, right? I actually want to jump into a different gear for 2 seconds. I actually want to ask your, I guess, words of wisdom for someone who may want to jump into theater now.
Here's my anecdote. Don't join the unions right away. Andy told us this. Jason Howell told us the opposite. That was to join the ACTRA right away. Now, here's where I tripped up. Andy Cook is a theater actor. He made the strong case, which I accepted and believe, that you should not join the theater union right away because there's a lot of good non-union theater. Jason Howell taught us about the union from the film and TV perspective. And he even said at one point, in regards to a theater union, yeah, don't join the theater union right away. There's a lot of good non-union theater out there. Exception was film and TV. There isn't a lot of good film and TV, non-union film and TV out there. And he encouraged us to join ACTRA right away. So this in my head was solidified, and it made so much sense to me. Film and TV is really regulated. So regulated. I doubt ACTRA is letting any non-union film and TV exist in Montreal. Whereas theater, it's a lot harder to regulate. And there's probably a lot, and as a theater hub of the world, there's a lot of theater going on here, probably a lot of non-union theater going on. So in my head, I said, joining ACTRA right away, not joining Equity right away. That's what I want to do. Plus, you'll probably remember me on the group chat when we graduated. In my mind, we had like 60 days to join ACTRA to utilize that ACTRA credit we get for graduating. And I was like, hey guys, we're running out of time here. Don't forget, if you want to utilize that ACTRA credit, go to the ACTRA office and join ACTRA. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. Everyone was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Let us know what the details are when you get there, because I was going right then and there. I got to ACTRA and they said, if we were ACTRA Toronto, yeah, we would hold you to it. In Toronto, we understand you got shit to do. So long as you come whenever you want and you can prove that you graduated, take as much time as you won't lose the opportunity to get your credit. I'm like, hey, that's cool. So I let you guys know. But in my mind, there was still no benefit to not being ACTRA. I joined ACTRA. I got my ACTRA number, did the test because you have to take a test. I don't know if you ever went and got ACTRA. I let my agent know. Matthew, I let my agent know. I turned the game up for this. Matthew, take a guess. Take a guess at my agent's reaction when I told her I joined ACTRA.
She was not impressed.
She was not impressed.
Yeah.
She was not impressed. She said, why would you do that? And I said, to do film and TV. And she's like, but what about the non-union film and TV? And I said, there's non-union film and TV? Jason Howell lied to me? No offense, Jason Howell. You were an awesome teacher. But apparently on this one fact, because even Jason had admitted that he let his ACTRA membership go. So via that, I don't know how much theater he did, but he certainly wasn't doing any film and TV at the time because he can't. He was ACTRA member and he let his membership go. Turns out there is quite a lot of valuable non-union film and TV in Montreal you can do. And so my anecdote, if I had to give at least one, is if you have an agent, ask them if they're going to be applying you to non-union film and TV before you join ACTRA. If you don't have an agent, which I would not be able to survive without because I have virtually no connection. I have one connection, but I'm not very good at connections and would probably not survive in that landscape. See if you can find it first before giving up and becoming ACTRA. That would be my anecdote. As someone who was not really good at doing this, stay close to the people who are good at business shit if you're not good at business shit. If you know people who are really good at making connections and finding shit online, stay close to those people because they're probably going to be your de facto agents in the end. If you're not good, find an agent or find someone who can be your de facto agent or pay that person and have them become your agent. Maybe they'll open an agency and you'll be their first client.
Who knows?
I don't know.
But that's the thing. You are 100% right on that.
Well, I don't blame Jason. I'm sure it's good advice, and I'm not at the end of my rope having joined ACTRA. I definitely would have been told, no, there is non-union film and TV stuff happening. And I also would have liked ACTRA to have told us we don't have to rush to get the ACTRA credit, because that was definitely the reason I got it. Even though they told me, I thought, well, it's still in my benefit to get it right away. Remember, because we were visited by ACTRA, but we were visited by a guy from ACTRA Toronto. And like I said, in Toronto, according to the person at the office, they're hard asses. They will keep you to that 60 or 90 day time limit you have to apply for ACTRA. Montreal doesn't do that. However, I have not been doing nothing. I've been doing nothing something. What is nothing something? I've been doing free work.
And honestly, sometimes that's the best and most fulfilling work we do. Because you guys are going to see, okay? Once you get out into the quote unquote real world, a lot of stuff with theater, a lot of stuff with voice sometimes, there's a lot of stuff with dance sometimes that is not paid. But I've been saying on the podcast before, it is a career of passion. If you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life, right?
I mean, like, could you imagine doing anything else?
No. Right. So, and if you guys are in the same boat, which chances are you are, and
especially if you're watching this podcast,
exactly,
very thematic one,
more than
it's
likely
very
you
niche.
are. Then honestly, just whatever comes your way, take it. And you're gonna love it, believe me, because I've done some voice stuff. Voice is amazing, but it was free. But you know what? It was good. It was a nice volunteer work that I can now put on my resume. And guess what, guys? The more stuff on your resume, the more people look, right?
The stuff I've been doing, I keep looking at it, and it's fun to do. I don't belittle the stuff I've been doing, but I keep looking at it. And only one of them has like come to full fruition. One little YouTube series based on the game Among Us, if you've ever heard of it. It just went on YouTube, and I'm like, I would look at it and say, oh, this can't even go on my resume. I don't think this would be worth the while. So I actually haven't gone and put any of that on my resume.
You can. It works. So you should. But this is the thing, guys. Overall, the more stuff that you do and every job that you're going to do, whether it's 1 or 100, you're going to learn from each one you do. Right. And yeah, it's very wise words of wisdom that many people need to hear, because I remember you telling me this story at the beginning when everything was happening with ACTRA. Right. And I think that might have been part of the reason why I haven't done ACTRA yet. Right. Where it's kind of like, you know, you rethink the next step. And many people, I know a lot of graduating classes tend to watch the podcast. And you guys are going to go and try and do the real world. And then you're going to think, whoa, okay, I remember Adrian saying this in the Little Thespian Podcast. And it's true, guys. You know, you really need to, when it becomes a business aspect of it, like you were saying, really just ask your agent and talk to them, because if they're not in collaboration with you, and they're not telling you 100% what you should and shouldn't do, sometimes it can be more stressful, right? But here we are, and you know, you learn from it, and we move forward, and you're gonna get many more. I only know it. 2022 is Adrian's year.
Probably 2021 was Adrian's year. Because I had gotten my first credit, and I do have this one connection, this really nice guy named Aldo. Aldo, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Aldo because I like talking about him, because he's a guy who likes to talk. He could talk to you on the phone for like 2 hours, but he's a super nice guy. I met him because I took his workshop. And the reason why I'm bringing it up with you is because, well, it's relevant for you, because we're also trying to become security guards as it happens. No, you're not? Yeah?
No, I am.
No?
I am.
Okay. Matthew, if you don't know, Matthew, for those who don't know, he introduced me to the concept of becoming a security guard because, it gave him a lot of time to do more theater, which he's doing. If you don't know, he went on tour recently, or will, or was, or hopefully will be again once everything's all over.
Yeah.
I have this connection named Aldo. I know him because I took his workshop in film acting, and we ended up just staying connected, and he has the same agent as I do. And he kept pushing me, kept giving me guidance, and he became probably one of my most valuable assets and connections in navigating this acting world. So Aldo, I've been in contact with him ever since I took his his workshop way before the pandemic, and then it stopped. We didn't finish it. Now he wants to move to Toronto, so I won't be able to finish it. But since the pandemic hit, I've been in contact with him, and he's always saying, Adrian, you got to get your chance. You just need your push. And at some point, you're going to do something that's going to get you that final credit. Adrian, you're going to get your final credit this year. You got to get your final credit this year. And he I don't know if I'm going to get my final credit this year, but when I got that second credit, which is technically my first credit, dear God, this guy was excited. Basically what I did was I did this voiceover dubbing for this French Télé-Québec show called Dunya. In the original French, all the voice actors were like Arab. In the English, all the voice actors are Arab. Except my name, except me. And Aldo, I was telling Aldo, because it finally went online. I was finally able to find it. Vindication for the work I've done. And I'm showing him and I'm showing the other names that did it. And he's like, Adrian, I know all these guys. You're the only white guy in this show. And he thought it was so funny. But it was like he was there and he made me feel good because he kind of acknowledged my moment of vindication. I guess the point of the story is why I wanted to talk about Aldo is you got to find yourself an Aldo. I don't know. I'm not necessarily talking to you, Matthew, because I know you're a super successful Shakespeare actor now. But to all the people who are like me, who are kind of struggling with finding work that you would like, I don't consider this free work that I'm doing. It just goes on YouTube and it's being organized by 14-year-olds and written by 14-year-olds. While I love the work I'm doing, I might not consider it like, I don't want to say real, but like acknowledgeable. If you're like me and you're having trouble getting that acknowledgeable work and you do it and it's done, you gotta find someone who can like bask in that warmth with you. Because if you're by yourself, you gotta think, yeah, I did super cool. And you're gonna look to your left and you're gonna look to your right, and there's no one there to enjoy it with you. And it won't feel real for your own mental health. Because I needed this. Find someone who can literally just stand next to you and say, wow, that's you. That's super cool. That's how you're going to have the confidence to keep going to the second one. That's my thing. I don't know how serious a lot of you are going to take that. You need to find yourself people who are just going to help you take that next step after you success. You don't think you peaked. Because I have my Aldo in my back corner, and I know that like I'm going to keep climbing these heights. This isn't the year for me. I said, oh yeah, I joked 2021 was the year of Adrian, but no, I intend to keep climbing. Because I got an Aldo in my back corner who says, yeah, you see that? You're going to make it up there. That's my 2 cents. That's my anecdote.
You always have me in your back corner too. But honestly, it's true. Everyone needs someone to kind of, you did this and you did an amazing job at it. You know what I mean? And just, you need support. Exactly. I know the theater, sometimes that you see, it seems very collaborative, and it is, right?
It's
but
so
you kind
competitive too.
But it can also be very competitive. So you need someone maybe partially in theater, partially not in theater. You need someone that
someone it feels like you're not competing with. Someone who really feels like you're in it together, and just someone even though technically you are, like technically Aldo is an actor too. So I would get an email from our agent and we'd both be said, we want to see Adrian, we want to see Aldo audition for this role. It's the same role. So we really are competing. But someone who you can like talk to about it, and you can be like, someone who won't be like, oh, I should have gotten that role. Someone who could be like, yeah, you got it, Adrian. Yeah, you got it, Matthew. Good job. It's like the support net. So it feels like you don't think you're just going to plateau or never climb. Someone who says, yeah, you're going to make it up there.
Because sometimes that, like we say, is very competitive, and it can sometimes feel either very lonely sometimes, or it can feel very, claustrophobic. And, you kind of need someone to just say, good job on this, well done, I'm always here for you, stuff like that. Because I know a lot of actors kind of, when they don't get certain things, they just drop it, right? But if you love it,
it's easy to lose confidence, really.
Yeah,
It's
it
very
really
easy to lose
is.
confidence.
It really is.
We're
And it's-
people of simple needs. We need people to pat us on our back and say, you did it.
Mhm.
Good job. Jason once gave me my favorite advice in terms of auditioning. It's been a while since I've actually went somewhere to audition for anything theater related. Most of my stuff has been via self-tapes I record right here in my room. But he once said, after every audition, go to the dep and get yourself a chocolate bar. Reward yourself, not for every success, but for every audition. That was some of my favorite advice. I've never actually got to take advantage of it because on my way back from that one audition related to film and TV, or from any audition, I'm usually in a rush, so I have to get home. So I wish I could have grabbed myself a chocolate bar, but it's some of my favorite advice. You have to reward yourself for every effort, not for every success.
And it is so true. You know what I mean? And I've, even with stuff that I've got rejected from, you know what I mean? Sometimes you think that's your next big break, right? Yeah, that's my next thing. And so really, you kind of do the job and do what you need to do to make sure that, everything is up to par. And then once you do that, forget about it. Forget about it. I know it's hard to just say that, right? But try and forget about it, because you're only going to be playing in your own mind. What if, right? And sometimes being that limbo of what if is, it's not healthy, right? You need someone to kind of pull back those reins to go and, have a cup of coffee with, have, a chocolate bar, have ice cream, something, right? Go see a movie.
Give yourself the good brain juice, guys. You just got to give yourself the good brain juice.
I don't suggest alcohol, but if that's how you treat yourself, do it.
Well, the good brain juice isn't something you drink. The good brain juice is something your brain makes. You do something that makes you happy, and your brain makes the good brain juice.
Also, drink responsibly. Just
drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. Don't do drugs. Listen to your mama. Let's talk about Faustus
before we talk about Decalogue. Decalogue was a whole thing in itself. We played around in that show quite a bit. And we played several different characters that kind of had this buddy relationship from beginning
the
to
drunkards. I forget what we were called, but the drunkards were so fun to do. I wish I remembered my lines. I wish I would remembered more of the context. I remember the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. To be honest, I remember it being so much fun. I don't actually remember the gags we did. Why don't you tell us, Matthew? What did we do?
So me and Adrian, Jason kind of, had us have this whole thing from the beginning. So he would be the Pope to my Bruno. He
Pope
would
like
be
to kick the shit out of Bruno.
Still not one of my fondest moments, but we'll get back to that. But we also played Envy.
I had to stand on you, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. You played Covetousness and I played Envy. Mm-hmm. And we had to fight over your treasure chest, which was fun. And then we kind of had this whole gag with the horse courser and what was your character's name?
I don't remember what his name is.
Carter.
And the bad Scottish accents.
My God. So I played the horse courser, which had like this very thick accent. And we kind of had like this gag that there was more than just a buddy type romance or bromance with Carter and the horse courser,
which was not like to anyone listening right now. This wasn't an isolated thing. The entire play was just streaks and blood splatters of indecent the sexualities flying from every
Mhm.
corner. So it wasn't an isolated thing. It was very much in line with the rest of the play.
Absolutely. But Jason gave us like the reins to kind of would play with that. So we would come down the crowd, and
We started off stage. We came down from outside, would open the doors where the guest would normally come into the stage, and we started walking down the steps and just yelling at people on stage and yelling at people in the audience, I think.
yep. And then there were multiple other things that we did
I
that,
think I flirted with someone. Like there would be like we would stop and then I'd have to pick someone in the audience and I think I'd have to flirt with them or talk to them. I don't really remember.
yeah,
Sorry.
but it's true. We kind of played with, the audience, and we didn't really get to do that in any other production, right? We did, but we didn't.
Not till Decalogue.
Not till Decalogue. But here it was different because we were playing these characters that kind of just knew you were there and wanted to have fun. But the one that I'm thinking of the most is just out of nowhere. Jason came up with the idea of let's freeze everyone that's on stage, and we had to be in very provocative positions. And Adrian had this
the pipe.
The corn pipe. And
it was a smoking pipe,
Yeah.
Just imagine like an old man in the 60s.
And Kate, God bless her soul, she played this duchess that was very, very lustful. And it's funny because she played lust. That's why I'm using that word. And
that was chosen. That was no accident. Jason admitted that was no accident.
Absolutely. And then we were in these provocative positions. And I'll put a picture down below and another picture. And basically, as you guys can see, it was something that's very, it was just fun. It was just over the top. It was dramatic, comedic. Everything kind of just hit in this production. And we had moments of basically me pleading for my life. We had moments of me and you just, laughing and whatnot at each other. We had moments of us fighting. We had a whole journey and an arc with each other in that piece, and it was so much fun.
It's another good example. I wish I could remember. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and every time you say something, I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, that's true. But I don't remember all the details of that scene. But it's another example of that bad habit of mine, that backseat directing. I was supposed to not say something. I was supposed to not do anything for like a minute. I'm on stage and I'm just supposed to not do anything. But I clearly have this relationship with this waitress who shows up off stage, and they're like, we greet each other, we're like, hey. And I didn't want to not do anything because I'm really bad at that. I think back to like when I was in a high school play, I was doing The Secret Garden, and I'm supposed to be in a library on stage doing nothing. So I'm just like, just not stopping, keep going until my line. Oh, this is so cringe. And so I really didn't want to do that. So I said, hey, can I pretend to make out with her so I don't have to look like I'm not doing anything? And Jason's like, bet. And so I got to do that. And so it's like, I got him again.
That's the thing. Jason kind of just,
he rolled with all the punches. If anything happened, he was just so okay. Like, people would say something, people would do something, people would change something, and he'd be like, awesome, dude. Oh, can you do it again? And working with him was really nice.
That was the thing. Like, I could be wrong with this, but I think we may have came up with us fighting over your chess. I don't think that was in the original thing, right? But there was something about it that made it more.
It made sense though. You
It
were
made sense.
greed.
It was more
You
pleasing
were
to the eye, right? It was different.
yeah. I was covetousness. I don't know why they called him covetousness. In the play, I know why they called him covetousness, but whenever we were talking about him, can we just call him greed? It's so much easier to say. I was greed, you were envy, and so I had this big chest of gold, which fucking sucked. When I first had, it was my idea to have a chest. We were still like early production, nothing, none of the props were built. I had this box with me. I had a golden box. It's over there. And it's a small box like this. And so I'm like, I was going to carry it under my arm. I was going to be like on 3 arms walking around kind of mad. Like not Despero. What's the witch boy's name in The Tempest?
Caliban.
Caliban. I did a Caliban monologue at one point. Around inspired by a picture of Caliban that was on one of our theater books. He was like walking around, almost like was kind of walking wild like a gorilla, but with a little more intelligence than that. So it was inspired by that. So I'm walking around and I got this chest under my arm. He's like, that's a pretty cool idea. We'll do that. I'm like, great. Weeks later, I see the chest for the first time. It was a big chest.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
It was like a size of an actual trunk, like an old-fashioned treasure chest trunk.
Also, if you guys saw Dr. Faustus, you know that there was a trap door that we all needed to get out of, which was amazing to see, but it was it could be a lot. Let's just put it that way.
Any additional mechanical part in anything you do will pose complications. It's whether you decide whether you could put up with those complications to reap the benefits. And we did, and I did, but I did not anticipate, 1, having a chest that size, 2, having it open so the jewelry was sticking out and flying all over the place, 3, being chained to set chest, which even though I'm holding it most of the time, just presented its own issue. 4, having to push it out of a hole from underneath from the set. It became a lot for me, and I'm not bashing it. I did it in the end. It wasn't that big a deal, but dear God, I just wish it was smaller.
It's ironic because I played Envy, but I literally had the chain with nothing on it, right? So we kind of had like this weird parallel, right? Where I had nothing on it, but you had everything on it, right? But my God, I can see why it could be an adjustment, right?
It was a lot of fun to do, and it was very rewarding to work with, just such a specialized prop. I would look so much more fondly on that production, in that moment, in that scene, if either 1, the chest was just a little bit smaller, or 2, I didn't have to push it out from a hole. Because what I wanted to do was come out of the hole first and then yank it up via the chain and pull it with me. That's in my head looked the best. What I had to do was get under it and push it up through the hole first. And there was an issue because I always worried if I push it, it might fall down the steps because we couldn't actually go under the stage. The set was built so that on the stage, then the hole was built on a platform, so we'd have to go under the platform, still on top of the stage, to get up. But then there was like steps immediately in front of it. So I was always worried about that. And then of course I had to like make it character, so you'd hear me from under the stage pretending to really struggle pushing this huge chest out of a hole. And sometimes like it was really difficult, so I might be there for like 10, 20, 15 seconds, just getting this hole, making sure I don't push it too far, making sure it doesn't tip the wrong way, and then dragging it along with me, pretending it was heavy. It wasn't that heavy, but it was just cumbersome.
Those stairs too. I love the set. Amazing. The set is always amazing at Abbott, no matter what show you're in. Props
They
to.
do a ridiculously good job all the time.
But it's also the fact too, there were demons. If you guys don't know the story of Dr. Faustus, you can Google it.
Oh, poor them. They couldn't really see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those darn stairs really got them.
So that was that's a whole thing in itself, right? We were, or at least I was, you as well. We were all barefoot for those. But the girls had these huge heel-esque hooves. And
And
you know,
blindfolds. They
and
had
blindfolds. It was
not blindfold. They could see, but it's like they could see through the fabric. But that only goes so far because it's dark on set. So especially when they're in the wings, they probably couldn't see anything.
And it's honestly just, it's a testament to the amazing, all of it. I mean, acting, directing, design, tech, all of it. Faustus was an amazing production, and I look very fondly back at it.
I think we have that on DVD as well.
And we do, and it's a very well put together production. And you can see, I mean, like we were saying with Jason, he kind of just allowed us to play. And I think when directors allow us to play it too, it really can come out beautifully. And it's a great segue to hop into one that we all created together.
Oh, shit.
The Decalogue Project.
The quintessential piece of theater we did while we were in the program. This was our third year project by ourselves. Was this the second to last or the last one we did? Because usually the last.
This was second to last because we had Faustus for our last.
Right. So even though that was the one with the big cast because it included second years, this was like the quintessential third year project. We did this by ourselves. And while it's not based on, to give context, it's not based on the 10 Commandments, but it's inspired by the concept of the 10 Commandments. If I had to, like Andy, who was the director and our teacher for this project, he would probably never read. He would bring up the 10 Commandments a lot. We had to make our own 10 Commandments at one point, just as a practice project. He would never actually say it's not really about the 10 Commandments, just based on the 10 Commandments. I would say this is just inspired by lists in general, but it's also inspired by creation and philosophies. This was so it was not really written. A lot of it we had to kind of write ourselves, and a lot of it we did, and then a lot of it Andy added his own specific things that he wanted to say. A lot of it was dance, so there weren't any lines to begin with. We had to create our own movements and then incorporate that into the play.
We were talking about movement before, and as much as, you know, it was a whole different thing with 15 Dogs. That was like pure, you know, physicality.
This is more self-expression through movement, like interpretive dance. There was also mask. There was also plenty of mask work. We were each given these masks, and they were measured to our faces, so each one of them slightly different, even though they all kind of look the same. Mine still glows in the dark.
Because we had these amazing, if we were talking about tech and design, my God, in Decalogue, I sometimes think of it as a fever dream. I mean, it honestly, we were all in white, and we were kind of hit with these projections and these amazing lights. And
we're like, if I remember correctly, go ahead.
We also had blood and all sorts of crazy things that we were playing with.
Poor tech, though, because we all had starch white costumes, and a lot of us kept getting covered in fake blood, as we were supposed to. And so they had to keep, like, they would stay there for hours re-bleaching and cleaning these white costumes. I fortunately was not getting a lot of fake blood on me, but some of the people literally were supposed to sit there and get blood poured all over them. And it just, I feel bad for them. But we were supposed to be angels, right? And the entire pretense of the world we were in. First of all, context, Decalogue was a project in the round. It became very claustrophobic, almost very close, not claustrophobic, but very close quarters, because the Cassegrain Theater is not really designed to be done in the round. We didn't even utilize any of the seats in the house. Everything, the audience and the play was done on the stage of the Cassegrain Theater. Seats were built, and so it was actually a very small audience compared to normal. And it was very close quarters, and we would almost talk directly to the audience. There was way at the beginning, we would have to go back and forth and just talk to the audience, and they could see us from all angles. And so we're these angels standing on this paper world, because everything is made of paper, and there's a big tree in the middle. No, the tree comes later. It starts with the tree and it ends with the tree, I think. And then we rip up the paper at the end, signifying the end of this world. And so from the beginning, we talk about the creation of a world and therefore create a world. And at the end, we destroy the world, signifying the end of this world. So each kind of showing of this play, the Decalogue, was its own little encapsulated world, all slightly different in a way, all slightly unique.
My God. When I think about my time at Abbott, obviously there are so many great memories and, there's all the great shows, but it's also the fact too, that in your third year, you get to do a production with your ensemble. And at this point, your ensemble is your family, right? You see them more than you see your family. It's legit. When they tell you that in first year,
most of the time you spent with your actual family, you're asleep, so you really don't see them anyway.
Exactly. And here we are doing a production that we had so much say in. Some of the words that we said back then, right? And Andy just put it into the piece itself. So we're kind of in the fabric of making Decalogue. And it was so
he didn't even
surreal.
call it a play. He called it an experience.
Because
really there wasn't a beginning, a middle, or an end. There was just different. It was divided into like 7 segments or 10 segments, probably 10 because that's thematically accurate. And then we would tell snippets of stories. Another segment was just interpretive movement when I have a story to tell about that specific segment. Some of it was just drawing on the ground and adding color to this paper white world. We all grabbed crayons and we started writing on the paper because the entire set was made of paper, which at the end of every show was ripped up. And also the tech had to put it specifically on the ground the same way every time so we could work on it. And props were pulled in and out and stuck in the middle of the set. Paint, a boat, creation of Noah's Ark, and then the stories were being told around the boat about, I don't even remember, a judge, a colonel, a queen. And then we ripped it up all at the end and gone.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story about the in the movement. There was the costumes. We had these masks, but then we also had all white shirts. Some of us had vests, white pants. We were barefoot, so that was fun, especially when you had to step in the red paint. I'm kidding. It wasn't. Almost slipped a few times. It was a little scary because it was kind of dark sometimes, and then if you slip.
And we had to bring in most of the set again, right? So we only had 4 guys in the production. So we had me, Adrian, Hisham, and Ben. The thing was, with Decalogue, there were so many, again, it was very spread out, right? Nothing really connected to the next thing per se, right?
So everything had to be wiped clean for the next thing.
Exactly. So I felt like all the time we were kind of on the go again, right? We were talking about that with 15 Dogs, where there was always something.
I suppose, as kind of, because there was only 4 guys in there, we kind of had to be in there a lot to balance it out. So we may have been utilized a lot. I want to tell a story about the movement thing. Just a little memory I have. Something that really annoyed me was, it's in my closet. I'm not gonna get it. My costume had a bit of a defect. I had a very large and very heavy scarf, because everyone had a scarf, a sash. Some of you guys had it wrapped around your head. Some of you had it like as a sash going back from your waist back to your head. I had it in a very gravity-defying orientation. It's from my back, then it comes back and from my chest, and it goes back to my back without just falling and catching on my neck. But it was such a heavy and it was held by magnets. Everyone's were held by magnets. Mine did not have enough magnets. It was such a heavy fabric that almost every single time we had to go into the movement section, the scarf would fall off. And so I looked at mine and I looked at the others, and some of you guys had like really free-flowing sashes, super light, would not come off if you were in a hurricane because the magnet was just stronger than the scarf. And I went to the costume. I said, "Hey guys, I love the thing I have with the scarf. Wearing it makes me feel cool. It makes me feel very anime, and I love it. But I need more magnets. It's not gonna stay on when I do the movement section. It just hasn't." They added 2 magnets that were a lot smaller than the other magnets that were already on there, and it still did not stay on. We're doing the movement thing. We're going at it, and we're not just going like this. We're freaking doing whatever we gotta do, whatever we had decided beforehand, stretching out really far, coming really back, doing slow movements followed by a swift movement. And what did you know? What, the scarf falls off. And so I catch it, and now I'm holding it like it's almost like it's a fishing rod or a whip, and I'm running around with it. Really what I'm trying to do is discreetly put it back on so no one sees or it gets stuck in the paint, because I don't want to give the people at the end of the show clean more because it got stuck in the red paint. I'm trying to keep it off the ground. And Andrea at the end of the show was like, "Hey, that was really cool. That looked like you practiced that." And I'm like, "Yeah, thank you.
I totally did.
Can you add some magnets?" And that's, in terms of Decalogue, that's probably one of my fondest memories. Just something going wrong and getting complimented for it.
And that's the thing too. Like, again, we had that available place to play, right? Even though there were things in it that were like set, right? Like the war scene, the childhood scene, these big powerful moments that were dark and sad sometimes. We also had moments of just, oh my god, this looks beautiful, it's stunning.
Like the moment when we're walking around the boat and the interpretive dance scene. While some of them is choreographed, because we choreographed it beforehand, at some point it just becomes and go. And so no show is ever exactly the same, because at some point we stop doing the choreograph stuff and start doing whatever feels right. And so the moments where we're doing the interpretive dance becomes its own thing, and it just gives you a lot of room to breathe and do whatever you want almost. When we're waltzing around the boat that's being kind of constructed in the middle as people put their piece and leave stage, it's never exactly the same because it's not really choreographed. So sometimes the way you handle your piece as you're rotating it through the air like a planet is never going to be exactly the same as you did it the night before, because there's just so much beautiful room to breathe.
We also had a moment in it that Andy wanted us to go and introduce ourselves to somebody in the crowd. And that was something that I've never had the opportunity to do, obviously, in theater, because you're always playing somebody, right? Mm-hmm. But it was kind of great to have the mask off and just be Matthew for on stage for a bit. You know what I mean? And
We had our masks off during that moment. I thought we had them on.
no, we had them off. We were.
Did we
saying
introduce ourselves as our angel names? Because everyone had an angel name.
that we
Did
did?
we introduce ourselves as our angel name or as our real name?
As well, first we said our name and then we said our angel's name, if I remember correctly. Hi, my name's Matthew and my angel name is, right? And it was just something that, we kind of had this rapport with the audience.
We included them into the experience that became Decalogue.
And that would then follow into the childhood scene, where we had to play some very bad human beings, because we'd come in with, some equipment.
Okay. The school scene.
The school scene. But that was the thing. It kind of, we had a very peaceful moment, and then we had something that was dark, but it also looked beautiful. And it was kind of like this weird mix of like, this is a story that's being told, but it could potentially be our future. You know what I mean? It was very, very philosophical, but it was a very amazing piece that we got to do with the family. So I look at it very, very fondly all the time.
And can I just reiterate that basically the entire thing glowed in the dark?
The entire thing, pretty much, yeah.
The entire thing just glowed in the dark. Like, when I say this thing is like a couple of years old now, right? Along all the edges here, if you can't see it because there's so much light on it now, but there's
crevices.
What is that word? No. Like what's the paint called? It's
called
UV
light. UV.
There's like UV paint that glows if it absorbs enough energy and light, and when in the dark it glows like a bright green. The entire set pretty much did that, except for like the floor.
But the floor too, it had projections on it, so we kind of had like, sometimes we were in flames, sometimes we were in like sand. It was amazing. Like, honestly, it was insane what we projected on, what equipment we had. It was nuts. Meaning
and performance aside, this play was a spectacle to see, and you're super close to it. Remind you, all the audience was sitting on stage. They're not in the house in the guest seats. They're sitting 2 feet away on man-made benches, on benches that the tech made to specifically for this set. And they're like 3 feet away from the action. They're in it, which is why it was such a big deal to bring them into the play by introducing ourselves, because they're already on stage.
Exactly. They were a part of the production. So if you guys did come and see Decalogue,
if you went to see Decalogue, part of the thing you saw was the other audience sitting across from you. They were part of it. You can see them experiencing it, and that's part of your experience.
And the thing
that's part of theater in the round.
And it's
mostly in the round.
I found it very nice to kind of be surrounded by these amazing, amazing audience members that just love the production. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember people coming up and being like, what were you guys thinking during the scene? What was this? What was that? Sometimes I couldn't answer, right? Sometimes it was very philosophical, right? But it's also, it gave them kind of the meaning of like, yeah, we're a part of this. You know what I mean? We're in this conversation with you.
I was thinking that kind of thing about the rest of the cast during the creation process, because we got to write. We didn't really touch on this too much, so if we still have time, let's talk about it more. Yeah. We got to create this play with Andy a lot. So the first scene was the shaving scene. Me and Walsh, I was sitting in a barber chair and Walsh was the barber, and she was shaving me, and we were talking about this form of creation that she heard about. And that was, I guess, a real theory of creation from a religion or a culture that Andy researched and put into the play. But the other two, the one you were doing and the one Melanie and someone else was doing.
Melanie and Lynette, yeah.
Melanie and Lynette were doing, were theories of creation that we made in class one day. We just made it up. Bunch of people got paired up We created random theories of creation and we used that. Some of the other scenes were monologues that people wrote, poems that people wrote. Boom, they made it into the play. There was one point where we're sitting in a circle and we just have to say things that we're afraid of most. That didn't come from Andy, that came from us. And so as much as the play was Andy's idea, it came from the people who were performing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the greatest strength of Decalogue. It came from the people you see. So if it was ever performed again, like the skeleton, the format, very similar to Find Me. If you take it and give it to someone else, it would be completely different. Probably wouldn't even be a barber scene. There might be a barber scene because they have to do the bog standard creation that the author wrote. But then the theories of creation on the side that the cast had to create would be completely different. I think the only other scene I could think of that Andy actually wrote was the Schrodinger's cat scene.
Schrodinger's cat, and I think the archaeological scene where we had that was another piece that we needed to bring in. We got very attached with the light I had to bring in for that same scene that we were just talking about. The one about our deepest fears. These were big props, but it was also, like we were saying, Andy. He kind of gave us, like you said, the skeleton. There was a bit of a skeleton to it,
and we had to fill out the rest.
We had to fill in everything else, and it became this collaborative, just kaleidoscope of ideas.
I remember Anana had to come in and give us ideas and work with us because we were doing a lot of mask, and she's more familiar with mask work than Andy was. So we did a lot of work with mask. There was a few different masks. Walsh wore a mask during the barber scene. I wore a mask of shaving cream, so that was my mask. That was fun.
We also had Schrodinger's cat, which was beautifully done.
Yeah. Who did YJ work with? It was Camilla. No?
Yep.
It was very well done.
Honestly, just an amazing experience overall.
And a lot of fun too.
And so we do have a couple more questions. We have two more. But the one that I want to circle back to, because we were just talking about our amazing time at Abbott, but it all started really from the 10-minute plays. Right? And these 10-minute plays, so just to put in a bit of context, Andy kind of likes to do this thing in first year. So if you guys are in Andy's class, assume you might be doing a 10-minute play at the end of your first year. So
assuming everything would be going to plan, because of course pandemic,
COVID, all that. However, usually he finds these two-person plays that are roughly around 10 minutes long. And
yours
we were
always
all in
stuck
separate
out.
Ones. So me and Adrian were not in the same 10-minute play.
I remember yours. You were with Camilla and you were in the sniper. It stuck out to me because I'm pretty sure other than Alexa Artsy, who I worked with on my 10-minute play, I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was the only Jew in class, and I'm not super religious, but yours stuck out to me because you were an Israeli sniper. And so while I didn't feel any emotional attachment to the fact that you were playing an Israeli, it just stood in my mind like, oh, it's Israeli. Yeah. It's the Israeli army. I know a thing about that.
Yeah, I played Zach. So I played a sniper.
And I played someone whose name I don't remember, but someone who, since playing him, I kind of became rather envious of his situation, though a lot of people in class disagreed with me. Sorry for this segment, I guess. I was in a play. I was partnered up with Alexa Artsy, wonderful actress, by the way. I don't remember the characters' names, but I was in a 10-minute play called Stalk Me, Baby. And it goes a little something like this. I'll just use me and Alexa's name because I don't remember the characters' names. Adrian is sitting in a cafe, texting his mom about her bunions, I think. It was something gross like that.
Yeah, it borderline comedy at the beginning.
It's supposed to be comedy throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
A little bit romantic, but it's called Stalk Me Baby for a reason. Adrian is sitting at the table And Alexa comes over and starts complaining to him, says, I've had it. I'm done with you. I need you to stop. You're stalking me, and I have proof. Adrian looks up at Alexa and says, I've never seen you a day in my life. I don't know who you are. And so Alexa continues to go, accusing him of stalking him. The thing that triggers the audience, however, is the audience will notice that the stalkee in this scenario seems to know a lot about this stalker as things start to slip out of her mouth. And it goes on. He starts picking up, like, how do you know that? What? I'm not. How do you know that? Why'd you have that? How do you have that? How do you have that information? And while I can't remember how everything goes point to point in this play, it's actually the reverse scenario. This girl walks up to this guy who she kind of has this crush on from having sat here in this cafe every time he's in this cafe, and starts stalking him. And in order to start talking to him, the only thing she could think of is going up to him and accuse him of stalking her. Now, the play is supposed to end like this. They give each other a chance at romance, because the fact that she basically starts talking about how she already knows him. And you're supposed to get the sense that this guy, Adrian, is rather kind of self-conscious about himself, and though he wouldn't really think himself desirable. And yet here's this girl who walks over to him and says, hey, I want a piece of you, in like a roundabout way. And he's like, why? I'm nothing special. And she's like, yeah, I know, but I like you anyway. And so the play is supposed to end with them kind of giving each other a chance, because what he finds attractive about her is that how accepting she is of him. And we did it. It ends like at them kind of looking at each other lovingly, like kind of gazing to each eyes. It was rather corny. Andy made a comment when we did it that way. It's like, wow, that's rather almost too corny. And after we were done, we did it for the last time, or in rehearsal, because we ended up stitching all these 10-minute plays together in a big production, which was fun. And this has nothing to do with theater. This is just, I guess, my own opinions on romance. I'm thinking to myself, no, it's kind of romantic. And everyone's like, it's not romantic in any sense. It's too creepy. She's a stalker. And I'm like, okay, let's dissect it here. I didn't really talk to them. I ended up speaking to Hisham about this. We were in a parking lot one day after getting food before COVID hit. The good old days. We were sitting in a parking lot, and I'm ranting to him about this. So if you ever have, I don't know if you've ever had an interview with him, but if you ever do, you bring it up, he'll probably remember
come
this.
on, please.
Hisham, come on, please. So my opinion of this is, in the fictional scenario of the play, we can assume or make the choice that what she says in the end is truth, and that she's not actually going to harm him in any way. Let's pretend that for a second. Matthew, someone walks into the room, never seen him before in your life, very attractive woman, and she says, hey, Matthew, and you're like, whoa, how do you know my name? Who are you? And she's like, I'm sorry. I've been following you around for maybe a month now, and I'm really into you. She talks about all the things you're really good at. Most importantly, though, she talks about all the things you're really bad at. She brings up your flaws. And then she says a second time, Matt, I'm really into you. That goes beyond the scope of regular love for me. Because you think of starting a regular relationship, it's about compromise, right? Standing on what's important for you, but being in love with someone so much that you would compromise for them. That's the mark of true love. What if someone walks into the door and says, everything you think you might need to compromise, all the things you're insecure about, don't fucking touch it. Leave it on that setting. Don't change a goddamn thing. That's not love, Matthew. That's unconditional love. That's the thing your mom has for you. Or she walks in and she's basically said, hi, we're family now. We don't even have to date. We're already family because I have unconditional love for you. So when the rest of my class said how creepy this concept was for a guy deciding to start dating a stalker just to give it a try, they never settle on anything. He's like, I'll give you a test run. They thought it was creepy and weird as fuck. And I was kind of insulted because in a fictional world, is there any greater ideal than someone walking up to you and you don't even know them, taking that leap of faith that so many people think a guy has to do and to ask a girl out because that's what a guy is supposed to do, right? Take that leap of faith and embarrass themselves. This girl comes in, embarrasses herself spectacularly by accusing him of being a stalker and then saying, yeah, all those things that you dislike about yourself, if you put them next to all the stuff you like about yourself and compare them to the stuff I like about you, you're kind of dope. I can only dream of that. Yes, I get it. A stalker is dangerous. You should not be a stalker. Personal space, and if you have a stalker, I do say be careful because you don't know what their intentions are. So yeah, you could get hurt by a stalker because there is no ideal stalker like in Stalk Me Baby. But yeah, I was a little bit hurt by the reception the play got because I think I understood what the author of that 10-minute play was trying to get. They were trying to set up this scenario for, like, everyone thinks, and maybe it's true, the male fantasy is like the harem, right? The quintessential straight heterosexual male fantasy is a lot of attractive women fawning over him, tons of sex. But for like the average Joe who, after having that fantasy, like, and starts looking into actual romance and love in a relationship, that's like unconditional love for me. So it bothered me that the class was not very receptive to what I thought the play's message was.
And that's the thing. Every play has a message, guys, and it's meant to have a conversation about, right? If plays were just, very one-dimensional,
you wouldn't go see them.
You wouldn't like watching it. It's not dramatic. It's not comedic. It's nothing. It's just two people talking.
Not that there isn't a place for those.
There is room for that. It has happened. We've studied authors that have this. They just talk, right? If you know a play called Waiting for Godot, that's literally what they do. They talk and wait for a person called Godot.
On two separate
obviously there's more to that, but regardless.
On two separate occasions, I had the liberty and the time and the motivation. Those three things had to line up for any of this to happen. And it happened twice by miracle. I had the opportunity of writing 10-minute plays myself for an English class we did at the same time as going to a theater program. And even they weren't very deep. I would definitely consider them one-dimensional plays. Writing them was just too much fun, and I didn't care if people liked them at the end. So,
and some authors are like that too. Some playwrights are like that. It's their mindset. You know what I mean? And then you see something in it, right? And then it talks to you, right? That's the thing. It really can be that. So,
and just because people don't see the same thing as you do in a play, if someone sees something else or completely has a different opinion, like the rest of the class did to me about Stalk Me Baby, that boom, conversation. You can't have a conversation where everyone agrees on the same thing is boring. You have to find someone to disagree with you in order to have a conversation with them.
And so that's the world, guys. But that's the world. That's
the mark of a good play,
right? Like that's the world. Like when you think about acting, and I want to take this, this time to just let you guys know that in regards to theater in general, you have to have these conversations, right? You're not going to like everyone you play. You're not going to like every play that you read.
A lot of people have difficulty having conversations.
And
I seem to be able to almost have conversations on the spur of the moment. Maybe that's my fault. I don't know the time and place to talk.
I'm saying this in the nicest way. We have to tiptoe around a lot of things, right? When it comes to theater now. And we know that it's only going to get worse as time goes by with everyone being on separate sides of this whole pandemic, stuff like that. People are going to make things about controversy because guess what? The world is all about controversy, guys. You have one side, you have the other. You have some
Most good
people that are in the
most
middle.
good television is about controversy.
Again, drama. You have to see someone at their worst to see somebody at their best, right? Same thing's going to happen when you're in these conversations, these debates. So just take everything with a grain of salt. Okay. Just please. Unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the podcast, but we have one more question. I know I love it. I adore this time, but I have to talk about the future with you, which is always great. What is in the pipeline? What is in the dream scenario?
So,
As we-
it's a difficult question because this is a very difficult question for me. In the last 2 years since graduating, I've done a lot of sitting around and almost doing nothing. I've been doing the voice acting on castingcall.club. I'll do whatever my agent sends me via email. I was in France. I don't get a lot of callbacks, to be honest, but I was in France. And I brought enough equipment that I could attach to my phone to do a self-tape. And I was able to do a particular, not a self-tape, but an entire audition via Zoom using my phone and the equipment I can attach to it. Yeah, I didn't think it went well, but I got an email maybe the next day, and remind you, I am in France, in Nice, France. Different time zone, like 6 hours ahead of Montreal. I get an email from my agent saying, hey, you got a call back. Can you be on St. Catherine Street this time tomorrow? And this is the point of my trip where I realize my agent doesn't know I'm in Nice, France. So I say, no, I'm in Nice, France. And she responds with, what are you doing in France? And so I got a call back, but I didn't get to go to it. So that entire thing fell forward. I said, hey, can I just do the callback via Zoom again? And she's like, I'll ask. Didn't hear back from her for that. But I'm looking at my future right now, and it's kind of blank. I just submitted, just a few days ago, I submitted an audition for real things, real professional paid for things. Odds are I won't hear back from them. I have no theater in the pipe works. I have no other job in the pipe works. And so I have really nothing. On castingcall.club, there isn't a challenge where there's like an achievement you can get. It means nothing, the achievement, but you get the achievement if you submit a audition every day for 30 days. When I first started on castingcall.club, I was so excited about it. I almost did it. Maybe I made it to like 20 something days, and then I kind of lapsed and I stopped using castingcall.club, mainly because I kept bouncing from job to job on Discord. And then maybe a week and a half ago, I started on castingcall.club and I casting call again, and I tried submitting a audition every day again, and then I lapsed again just a few days ago. So I'd have to restart. But I'm just, I'm doing whatever comes to me. I don't know how. I'll tell you what, you need, and I'm not specifically talking to you because I know you don't have an agent. You're probably better at this than I am. You need to know how to go out and find work like I don't. That's how you're getting most of it. You have to go out and find it. You can't be sitting around kind of just doing what gets sent to you. you have to know where to look, and I don't. So you have to learn that.
Honestly,
That's
I can't
what my
wait to
future
see
looks like.
though. But I can't wait to see what that future will look like, right? Once stuff starts to open back up, because let's be honest, guys, let's hope. Because I know I've been saying this for over freaking 40 episodes that COVID is near the end of its reign, right?
Unless it literally starts to rain COVID, then that's gonna
then we're screwed. Then
bite
it's
you in the
game.
butt.
Then it's curtains. And
Like, nope. How do I quit to desktop?
But that's the thing. Like I cannot wait to see the future that it holds, because with everything slowly going away and coming back and then going away again, hopefully once this thing comes to a designated end, right? And that we can actually go and, go from job to job to job to job. I know some people, they get into like this routine, but now it's hard to have that routine, right? And we were in isolation for a bit again, where we were in curfew again, and we had all this, the scare again, you know what I mean? And it's also the fact too that even though you are doing stuff from home, you're still putting in that grind. It's just the grind. It's just continuing,
Honing
doing
the
what
craft,
you love, honing
not
the craft.
giving it up, not being idle. That's
the
very
thing.
important. You can't be idle.
It is very important. And we got to keep it up. So I always shine a light on my guests, and unfortunately, it is the time to say goodbye. But I always shine a light on my guests, and again, this is a hard one. Adrian, man, it's been real. It always is amazing talking to you, and it was great having you, with my ensemble, for the 3 years. We were so close during those 3 years too. We still are, you know what I mean? And we're still going through security, and it is going to be awesome again once everything, comes back to goddamn normal. For Christ's sake, we need to get back there, guys. But we're almost there. So to shine a light on you, man, it's always great to have your input, to talk to you about everything we love, and to now be working with you once again for the foreseeable future, with everything with security and hopefully with theater and film and everything coming up, because I know the future's super, super bright. So thanks again, man. And
thank you for having me.
Soon.
Bye.
The lights are off. The curtain has fallen. And it's time to say goodbye. Thank you all for joining us on the Little Thespian Podcast. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask, either down below or on any of our platforms. On the next episode of Little Thespian Podcast, we have the class of 2022 at John Abbott College. It's going to be a great time, and I truly cannot wait. If you guys cannot wait, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, guys, thank you so much for 40 episodes. I am so grateful and so honored to continue doing this amazing journey with you all. I know we were on a bit of a hiatus, but we're back. And we started off great with a great guest. So thank you so much, Adrian, for being on this episode. One of our longest episodes to date, but one of our greatest. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all on the next Little Thespian Podcast. This has been your host, Matthew Crandall, telling you guys to always shine bright. We'll see you all on the next Little Thespian Podcast.